Mount Sinai, the site of the biblical story of Moses receiving the Ten Commandments, has fascinated people for centuries. But what if I tell you that scientists have made shocking discoveries on this holy mountain that challenge our understanding of history and the universe? The Hebrew Bible recounts that Mount Sinai is the site where Moses received the Ten Commandments from God. The book of Exodus describes this event, while the book of Deuteronomy specifies that it occurred on top of the mountain also called Mount Horeb. Experts in the field of religious studies generally agree that Sinai and Horeb are two names for the same geological location. Nevertheless, scholars continue to debate the precise location of Mount Sinai, as referred to in the Bible. During the 19th century, the discussion reached its peak, with some scholars proposing that the biblical text may be referring to a volcano. In this video, we are going to uncover the history of Mount Sinai and what scientists discovered while searching for it that left them shocked. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Mount Sinai, also known as Jebel Musa in Arabic, is a sacred mountain that is revered by several religions, including Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The mountain holds immense significance for these faiths, as it is believed to be the site of several pivotal events in religious history. Let's first take a look at its significance and history. In Judaism, Mount Sinai is believed to be the place where God gave Moses the Ten Commandments, one of the most important events in Jewish history. According to the Bible, Moses climbed the mountain to receive the commandments after leading the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. The mountain is also referred to as Horeb in the Hebrew Bible, where Moses is said to have first encountered God in the form of a burning bush. These events are significant because they established the covenant between God and the Israelites, and the Ten Commandments continue to be the cornerstone of Jewish law and ethics. In Christianity, Mount Sinai is associated with several events in the life of Jesus. According to the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus gave his famous Sermon on the Mount from a location near the mountain. Although the exact location is not specified, some Christian traditions also believe that the mountain was the site of the Transfiguration, where Jesus was seen talking to Moses and Elijah. However, the most significant association between Christianity and Mount Sinai is through the Old Testament. Christians view the Ten Commandments as a foundational moral code that applies to all people, not just Jews. In Islam, Mount Sinai is also known as Jabal Musa and is considered one of the holiest sites in the religion. Although the mountain is not specifically mentioned in the Quran, it is believed to be the site where God spoke to Moses and gave him the Ten Commandments. The mountain is also mentioned in several hadiths, or sayings of the Prophet, which describe the significance of the mountain in Islamic tradition. According to one hadith, Muhammad saw Mount Sinai during his ascension to heaven and recognized it as a holy site. As a result, the mountain holds great importance in Islamic history and is considered to be one of the most sacred places in the religion. Beyond these three major religions, Mount Sinai is also revered in other faiths and traditions. For example, in the Druze religion, which is a monotheistic faith that originated in the Middle East, Mount Sinai is believed to be the site of a significant event in the life of the religion's founder, Al-Hakim bi-Amr Allah. In the Baha'i faith, which is a monotheistic religion that originated in 19th century Persia, the mountain is associated with the prophet Moses and is considered to be a sacred site. But what's more interesting about Mount Sinai is that scholars, explorers, and geologists don't agree on its location. For many years, scholars and explorers have tried to determine the true location of Mount Sinai, and several locations have been proposed. Midian, which is in modern-day Saudi Arabia, is one of the most popular locations associated with Mount Sinai. Charles Beck, a historian, proposed the site of Mount Bagir, located in the northeast of the Gulf of Aqaba, as the actual location of Mount Sinai in his book Sinai in Arabia and the End of Midian in 1878. Despite Beck's proposal, several scholars have come forward with their own theories about the true location of Mount Sinai. Alwa Musil and H. Philby identified Mount Sinai. Ron Wyatt, a CRNA who later became a treasure hunter, added Jebel al-Lawz to the list of proposed locations. He claimed to have found the Ark of the Covenant with Jesus' blood still on the mercy seat, as well as the ruins of Sodom and Gomorrah, the Red Sea crossing, and some of Pharaoh's chariots. In 1978, Wyatt claimed to have found the eastern branch of the Red Sea near Nuwaba and fragments of Pharaoh's chariot wheels. He reasoned that since Saudi Arabia is so close, Mount Sinai must be there, because it is the tallest peak in the entire northwestern Saudi Arabian region, Jebel al-Lawz, as his choice for Mount Sinai. Wyatt and his two sons illegally crossed the Jordanian border into Saudi Arabia in 1984 to view the site. They took photographs and scouted out the area around Jebel al-Lawz. However, as they attempted to return to Israel, they were arrested and held in Israeli custody for 78 days, while their film was confiscated because they were suspected of being spies. The two were eventually set free in April 1985. Later, with the help of Mr. Samran al-Moteri, Wyatt returned to Saudi Arabia legitimately and went on a treasure hunt with Samran, agreeing to share the profits from any commercial minerals they discovered. Wyatt persuaded Dave Fassold to join their trip in pursuit of the gold of Exodus, relying on Fassold's molecular frequency generator, which he believed could sniff out any number of metals buried below the surface. A member of Samran's staff was detained and charged with robbing Saudi Arabia of its treasure from antiquity after discovering a bracelet that gleamed like pure gold. Once they were released, the Saudi authorities confiscated their film and notes, demanding that they never return to the country or share any of their discoveries publicly. After returning from the moon, David Fassold shared the news with an astronaut, Jim Irwin, a treasure seeker, Bob Cornuke, a former police officer and SWAT team member. They were introduced to Fassold by Irwin and learned about Mount Sinai and Egyptian gold from Fassold newsletters and those of Terry Williams, who reprinted some of his writings. The group sought advice from a California professor whose identity remained a secret until after the project was completed. The professor supported the idea of searching for Mount Sinai and gave his approval. He urged them to pursue the quest, but his name was kept confidential throughout the project. Williams and Cornuke traveled to Saudi Arabia twice in the summer of 1988 to search for Mount Sinai and the golden tablets of Exodus. They made it back safely and shared their findings with their colleagues. Larry Williams wrote a book titled The Mountain of Moses, The Discovery of Mount Sinai, which was later renamed The Mount Sinai Myth. Their travels were also the basis for Howard Bloom's best-selling book, The Gold of Exodus, The Finding of the Real Mount Sinai. However, there were several contradictions in the book. Ronald Hendel, a scholar of biblical studies, stated that Williams and Cornuke met with a biblical expert from Southern California who brought up an interview with Dr. Frank Moore Cross that appeared in the Bible Review in August 1992. The professor's access to the Bible Review issue from 1992 to 1988 remains unclear, and some scholars have criticized the credibility of the sources used in the books. In February 1998, Vanity Fair published an excerpt from Bloom's book. Based on these works, The Search for the True Mount Sinai was released. The advertisement claimed that Herschel Shanks, the editor of Biblical Archaeology Review, endorsed the film by declaring Jabal al-Lawz as the most plausible site for Mount Sinai. However, in the July-August 1999 issue of Biblical Archaeology Review, Ronald Hendel gave Bloom's book and video a poor assessment, stating that they failed to effectively address the arguments made by Williams and Bloom. The video's creator responded passionately to the criticism in the November-December 1999 issue of the same magazine. He defended the evidence presented in the film and argued that it was based on solid research and fieldwork. In addition, Herschel Shanks specified his support in a new way, stating, "The comment that has been ascribed to me is mostly correct. I continued by saying that it is exceedingly speculative to assign any particular name to Mount Sinai. One plausible location is in northwestern Saudi Arabia, near the mountain of Jabal al-Lawz." In the spring of 2000, Bob Cornuke published a book titled In Search of the Mountain of God, subtitled The Finding of the True Mount Sinai. The book recounts Cornuke's experience in Saudi Arabia and his hunt for the Pharaoh's chariots in the Gulf of Aqaba, along with his previous experiences with Williams. Although Cornuke and Williams claim that the real Mount Sinai is in Jabal al-Lawz, Saudi Arabia, their arguments are flawed and inaccurate. One of the main issues with their claims is that they do not correspond with biblical descriptions of the mountain. However, there are 3 incorrect assumptions and a failure to properly interpret the uncovered artifacts that have led to this flawed viewpoint. The first fallacy is the notion that the Sinai Peninsula was part of Egypt proper. Williams repeatedly refers to the Sinai Peninsula as the Egyptian Peninsula throughout his book. While the Sinai Peninsula is now an integral part of modern-day Egypt, that was not the case 3,500 years ago. According to the Bible, the Israelites were officially out of Egypt once they fled Sukkot, and eastern Egypt ended with the land of Goshen. Egypt and Sinai were separated by the forts on the eastern border canal. Sir Flanders Petrie, the father of Palestine archaeology, discovered copper and turquoise mines in the Sinai, located in the desert outside of the territorial border of Egypt, which passed to the east of the delta. Williams failed to grasp the significance of this remark. After reading Williams, Bloom, and Cornuke, one would conclude that the Egyptians maintained a permanent force in Sinai and conducted mining operations throughout the year. It is true that turquoise was mined in the south. However, the Israelites would have found Sinai empty when they left Egypt, as mining was seasonal, occurring only between January and April. In his final remarks, Petrie said no one could prove that the Israelites did not visit the area around the Egyptian mines because of the dangers involved. The Egyptians never permanently stationed a garrison there, sending out exploration parties every so often. The second fallacy is the assumption that the true Mount Sinai is in Jabal al-Lawz, Saudi Arabia. While the Sinai Peninsula is where the Bible says Mount Sinai is located, it is not located in Jabal al-Lawz. The biblical descriptions of the mountain do not match the mountain in Jabal al-Lawz. Moreover, there is no historical evidence to support the claim that the true Mount Sinai is located in Saudi Arabia. The third fallacy is the association that the gold that the Hebrews stole from the Egyptians is hidden in Jabal al-Lawz. The claim is entirely baseless and has no evidence to support it. Furthermore, the biblical account of the Exodus makes no mention of the Hebrews stealing any gold from the Egyptians. Williams and others have questioned how the Israelites managed to remain hidden from the Egyptians for 40 years while wandering the Sinai Peninsula. While there were areas of Sinai where no Egyptians lived, it's important to note that Sinai was not technically part of Egypt proper. In fact, to the south and center of Sinai, ancient Egyptian dominance never reached. The Egyptians did make it to the southern Sinai Peninsula's western strip, where they mined turquoise in the Sibret Ekadem and Wadi Magara. However, there is no evidence to suggest that the Egyptians actively mined for copper in the highly sought-after reserves in south-central Sinai. Despite this, Williams and other proponents of the theory that the true Mount Sinai is located in Jebel al-Law, Saudi Arabia, have raised concerns about how the Israelites could have remained hidden from the Egyptians for such a long time. However, it's important to consider the events that occurred at the Red Sea. Josephus claimed that Pharaoh had an extra 50,000 horsemen and 200,000 troops, but the Red Sea engulfed all of them. As a result, the Israelites feared and believed in the Lord, and fear and trembling gripped the Philistines, Moabites, and Canaanites. Given this context, it's unlikely that any sane Egyptian military commander would have sent troops into battle against Israel if they were still in Sinai, whether on an excursion to the turquoise mines in the southern Sinai or defending the ways of Horus in the northern Sinai. They would have understood the meaning behind Moses' declaration that the Lord was a man of war and that he was a God of awe-inspiring might. In fact, there is no evidence from the nearly 2.5 million Jewish pilgrims who are thought to have once inundated the Egyptian landscape. Despite 15 years of meticulous, laborious research by expert archaeologists, there is no evidence of a massive army having left behind campfires, stalks of food, acres of pottery, ceremonial equipment and utensils, weaponry, jewels, trinkets, and religious artifacts. There is no sign of large herds or flocks or the daily trash and discarded items of a nomadic crowd. So now, let us know your thoughts. What do you think about the true location of Mount Sinai? Tell us in the comments section below this video. We hope you enjoyed watching this video. If so, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos. We will be back to you soon with another amazing video. Until then, goodbye and peace.